All right, you're very welcome to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I'm Raf Diallo. We'll be building up to the Champions League final, which will be live on RTÉ2 and RTÉ Player on Saturday. That's coming up later on, along with our usual League of Ireland review. And joining me for that will be Richie Towell and Graham Gartland. But first, the Republic of Ireland women's return to Nations League action against Turkey on Friday in a match that we'll have live on RTÉ2, RTÉ Player, and RTÉ Radio, and details on the coverage a little bit later on. So I previewed that on Sunday with Shelbourne and former Ireland international Rachel Graham. But first, we reacted to Katie McCabe joining the select group of Irish players to win a Champions League medal. So we'll obviously talk about your match with Shelbourne yesterday in the All-Ireland League, but your kick-off against Bohs was 3 o'clock yesterday. The kick-off for the Women's Champions League final, which Katie McCabe was involved in, was 5 o'clock. So how did you get round to finishing your match and then trying to catch Katie, trying to make a bit of, or add her name to sort of Irish football history?
Yeah, look, obviously, we were super excited to watch Katie. Obviously, really close. We're an ex-teammate, played with her for years. So we had a plan. We were going to go straight after the game up to a pub up the road from Daly Mount and get the game in. Look, we only managed to make the second half of the time our game was done. But I mean, what a day for Katie. We were, so proud of her as a friend, as an Irish person. It was amazing to see. But I mean, how they played in the game. It was almost a masterclass in defending. They got their game plan absolutely spot on. The players after the game spoke about, they knew they were going to suffer. They knew they weren't going to have the ball. And then it was just get one chance and we'll take it. And that's exactly how it kind of went. And then, games like this, it's the subs that are so important and they often come on and they're the ones that win you the games. And that's exactly what happened. It was Beth Mead and Black Seniors came on and the two of them combined then for the goal. And then even, the last 15 minutes then it's obviously a long 15 minutes, but you have to just keep doing what you were doing. It was their defensive shape was keeping them out so much. And look, there was a few last stitch tackles, a few last stitch blocks, but I mean it was just their shape pretty much that kept Barcelona, how disciplined they were, how hard they worked in defence, just really frustrated Barcelona, kept them out. And then I think even with the 15 minutes to go, it almost felt like I didn't really feel like Barcelona were going to score. It wasn't a case where they were getting clear cut chances, but I think look, you can't fall into that trap either. I think the last game that Barcelona didn't score in was October 2024. So to keep them out at a nil or a clean sheet against them is an unbelievable achievement. But I mean, absolutely delighted for Katie. It was a great performance from her as well, also our team. But what a day for her and for Arsenal Football Club.
Yeah, so Arsenal won, Barcelona nil in Lisbon. Stina Blackstenia, 74th minute goal there. And Katie was speaking to TNT Sports afterwards, draped in the tricolour, obviously dropped an F-bomb, but that's normal in those circumstances. Anyway, but what she did say was, when I first came to the club, I was a young, naive kid that came over from Dublin, and Farah, as in Farah Williams, who was standing beside her, and Mitchie, who I think she was referring to Emma Mitchell there, and Emma Byrne, of course, Ireland legend, took me under their wing right from the very start. They taught me what it meant to be a professional footballer and play for Arsenal and wear the badge, and here I am. It's just an unbelievable feeling. I'm a Champions League winner. We all are. To give that to our fans today, they've been unbelievable and with us for every kick of the game. As you said, a former teammate of yours. Like when you think back when she's at Raheny and then she goes on to Shells very briefly, and then she starts on that adventure to Arsenal to get where she is there in a massive stadium, huge crowd, and the biggest stage in club football. Like it's some journey.
It's an unbelievable journey. And like for me, and for us, like our older kind of Raheny teammates, like the Pearl and Noelle, we always kind of see her just as still that little kid who was, look, I won't deny she was a bit of a brat when she was kind of coming through. It was a bit like, I can do what I want. And look, to be fair, she backed everything up on the pitch. So we kind of let her away with one or two things. But no, look, we're unbelievably proud of her. And look, she still has a lot of time for everyone back here. Anytime she's home, she's always looking to meet up, and we still have our group chat with all our old Raheny teammates. And it was obviously hopping yesterday, wishing her the best of luck and congratulations. And look, she hasn't replied to anything yet, so I'm guessing she's I don't know if she's even slept yet, but I'm sure she definitely will get around to it. But look, we're all so proud of her. What a journey. And people do forget sometimes that Katie didn't have it easy when she first went over. She went to Arsenal, struggled for a while to get in, to get to that level, and went to Glasgow on loan for a while. So everything she's got, she's worked really hard for. It hasn't always come easy for her. She's obviously really naturally talented and gifted, but she has worked really hard. And even though she was here, she was I won't mind saying a bit of a brat, but she always worked so hard. And she was a really hard worker in training, really hard worker on matches. So everything she's got, she's definitely deserved in football.
Yeah, and in terms of her overall performance in the match as well, I know as you said the first half you wouldn't have caught like the details of that, but she had Caroline Graham Hansen on her side, who's obviously a very top player. So how do you feel she did overall?
Yeah, and look, that's what we spoke about in the semi-final, quarter-final as well. Like she's obviously Katie's a really good attacking player, but defensively she's really good as well. And she done it in the semi-final, defended so well, done it again. And look, it was probably everyone at the time. It was their whole 11 was defending with such determination. But Katie, like we said last week, plays with her heart on her sleeve. She's will leave nothing behind. She'll have no regrets from that performance. I think Graham Hansen was taken off in the game, and that's always a good sign when you're playing against someone that they have to be taken off. So look, she was absolutely brilliant in the game. Delighted for her. Really tough task ahead of them. It was probably the toughest game in women's football at the moment, but they didn't make it look that way at all.
Yeah, and there was it doesn't matter now, obviously, because Arsenal won the game, but there was a moment she went down in the box under a challenge. Did you think that was a penalty? Oh, just on the replays, it looked like there was only a little bit of ball taken and a bit of McCabe as well at the same time.
Yeah, look, Katie's no, stranger to kind of going down when she gets a little touch. But I think in these games, look, any chance you can get, you take. But I think, if you want to get a penalty with all the VARs these days, like you're not getting away with any sort of soft penalty. So look, it's not out of Katie's character to try her best to get a free kick or a penalty. And look, that's her streetwise as well, as she's always had that in her. So look, any chance she can get, she'll take at that. But probably would have been a bit soft, yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of being a Champions League winner as well, that's obviously in the club game. It's a huge pinnacle. There's no real point kind of ranking these things in terms of like overall career achievements in a way as well, because of course there's the international side, leading Ireland to a World Cup, scoring in a World Cup. Like, where does this sort of fit into, I suppose, our overall story, being a Champions League winner?
Look, it probably is at the moment. I'd say it's at the very top. I mean, how many Irish players have won in Champions League? There's not many at all. Look, obviously it's a huge honour for her, and she's always spoke about how proud she is to play for Ireland and to captain the country, and that it is huge for her, obviously. But I think this, in terms of achieving to, mark yourselves as the best team in Europe, beating who are claimed to be the best team in Europe, and like all the odds were against them. The bookies were heavily favouring Barcelona to win. So I think the fact it was a bit of an upset as well makes it that even much better, that sweeter, that, a lot of people didn't really back them or believe in them. And, she was speaking during the week that they were, backing themselves. They were confident they could win. So I think that makes it even better. But I think to win a Champions League, like, I mean, that it has to be up there. I don't know if it's number one, but it's definitely top one or two, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously she's, as you mentioned, the international scene there. She has a very quick reset now because the Turkey game that Ireland have in the Women's Nations League is on Friday. We'll obviously have it on RT2 and the RT Player, which cover starts at 5:30. Live commentary on RT2 FM's Game On from 6, and then a live blog on RT.ie/sport. So, of course, the Turkey game was Carla Ward's first game in charge, the reverse fixture in Tala, 1-0 win. They were a tougher nut to crack at the time, I think, than we maybe anticipated. But probably that's not a bad thing for Ireland in a certain sense now, going into the away fixture.
Yeah, and look, like you said, it was some tough conditions off the pitch and on the pitch that night. It was Carla's first camp, her first game, and her and her staff are getting to know all the players, and likewise, the players are getting used to Carla and her training and her style of play. So it was, tough conditions wise. Even the weather on the night was really tough. It was windy, the pitch wasn't great, so it was a 1-0 win, which is the most important. But if you think back to the game, it's, Megan Campbell cleared one off the line late enough, and they missed a really good chance, which they should have scored really late on in the game. So it's definitely not a game that we're going to go into thinking, this is an easy one for us. And even the conditions now going into this game, like a lot of our players now are at the end of a long season, a tough season. And even, Katie McCabe, obviously, a really long season, a really tough season. But I don't even know if she'll be ready to kind of start the game on Friday. She's obviously going to be enjoying herself at the moment, which is, fully deserved. She's right to do it. And whether she's ready or not to play on Friday, I don't know if she'll start or maybe come on, but she's obviously going to be a huge player for us either way, whatever she does. But look, we should be beating Turkey, but I think the group hasn't really gone that way for us so far, where it's games where we should be winning, but they're a lot tighter bar that game away to Greece. The games have been really tight. So look, like you said, on paper, it's a game we should be winning, but they're never that easy. When Turkey came here, they were really aggressive, really strong, putting a few kind of heavy tackles on some of our players and made it difficult for us. So I expect nothing less in this game. And even, you have to travel away. It's a long enough journey, and the weather could be really warm. So it's conditions on this game as well could be really tough. But look, we're in a better place now than we were in February against them at home. Carla knows the players a lot more. The players are more comfortable now with Carla. Probably have a bit more of a settled team. So look, it's a game we should be winning, but if you're looking at results so far in our group, they haven't gone as easy as that. So look, it's a tough game for us, and look, it's one that if we do play well, we will win, but it's never that easy, is it?
Yeah, and obviously the looming game against Slovenia then coming on the Tuesday in Park as well, and obviously we remember what happened in Slovenia, the 4-0 defeat there as well, so that will kind of loom large. But for the Friday game, whether Katie starts or not, who would you like to see involved from the start, and how should Ireland set up as well, do you feel?
Yeah, well, look, we'd obviously love to all see Erin Healy and see what she's about. And I've seen a few more clips for her now, and she's, seems to be really athletic, really quick, a really, attacking player. So, like, she's someone that I'd like to see, out of curiosity as well. But she does look like she is a good player. And look, it's obviously hard to tell from clips of games. You don't really sometimes get a full picture of who a player is, but she's definitely someone that, from looking at the clips that I've seen, seems to be a really impressive player, really quick, someone that we could really use. I'd obviously love to see Avian get some sort of minutes in this camp, just for obviously a teammate, but also for, representing the League of Ireland. I know we have Rusha, but I feel Avian's, that real kind of a more maybe League of Ireland player from the start, whereas Rusha's kind of new to the league. So look, there are two players that I would love to see. I can't imagine Carla's going to make a whole lot of changes from the last couple of 11 she's set out, but yeah, like we said, Katie's probably the question mark at the moment, whether she's obviously going to be probably fatigued going into that camp. I think she might be meeting up with them Wednesday, so not a whole lot of time to kind of adjust to, the time zones and the flights and stuff like that. So we'll see about her on Friday.
Yeah, and then Tyler Toland as well. So it's just a club level for her. So Blackburn Rovers women have been withdrawn from the Women's Super League too, and that's obviously going to have an impact on all their players. She's been a captain there as well, so she will be in demand, I'd imagine, as well, because she's done in terms of her career. She's actually been quite brave in terms of going to different places. Was in Spain for a little while as well. So I imagine she'll have a bit of a busy time this summer at least, just trying to find what that next destination is going to be.
Yeah, and look, it's obviously disappointing. We're at one end of the scale, we're watching a Champions League final. There's nearly 39,000 people at it, and it's such a great day for women's football. But we also have the other side of it now, where there are clubs that are still struggling, and it was probably, really down to the financial situation of it. I think they said they were working off £100,000 budget, and some players are on £9,000 a year, which is, I mean, pretty much next to nothing. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine, if Tyler has ambitions to play international football, that she will stay at Blackburn if they do intend to go. I think they were planning on dropping two divisions, which, is not the greatest of standards. So for her, I think, the best move would be to get a move. She's obviously a big player for us, and look, she's not afraid to move. She's had a bit of a mixed time when she's gone abroad. Or gone professional, sorry. She's had a few clubs, and she's only gone professional in 2019, and I think that was her fourth club. She's only really spent a year at each club. So I think for her now it'd be great to get a move where she can get consistent game time at a good level, and can get a kind of couple of years now under her belt, because she's a really talented player. Probably just hasn't had the smoothest of transitions since she's gone professional.
Yeah, and then just on the Avenir Sport All Ireland Cup. So as I mentioned earlier, we're playing Bows, a 1-1 draw. Well, you started played the full 90 minutes as well, and again, lots of changes in the team as well, given the competition. But compared to the league game where it was 7-2 that we spoke about a few weeks ago, how different was this tactically and even in terms of the intensity?
Mhm. Like, it was actually pretty similar in how the kind of game went out. Like, obviously the scoreline was completely different, but even we spoke at that time, like, we went in 4-1 up at half time, but we could have easily been 3-1 down. It was a bit of a mad game, but I think the first half we, had a lot of the ball, but probably didn't use it as well as we have been in the last couple of weeks. We were pretty disappointed with how we played in the final third, and like the league game, we had majority possession, but they had the best chances. They had a few, really good chances. One got through on our keeper, and then look, Hannah Healy gets a great strike at the edge of the box. But again, a disappointing goal for us to concede, where the players getting that time at the edge of the box. So half time we spoke, and we were disappointed with the intensity that we played at. Didn't have the same feel as the league game, which we were disappointed in. It was something we spoke about before. Like, we're going into the break next week, so there was no excuses for anyone kind of saving their legs or saving themselves. So second half, then we upped the tempo a bit, played with a bit more intensity, and I think we were the better team in the second half. And then we obviously made a couple of changes that really, sped up our speed of play, improved our speed of play, and we had a couple of chances, and Rachel Kelly makes a great save. Rebecca Cook gets through two great balls from Ava and Clancy to get her in behind. And look, the first we probably disappointed. She might not done a bit better with, but I think the second one's a great save from Rachel Kelly. So look, I think a draw maybe overall probably fair given the two halves, but I think it's a good result probably for both of us at the moment with how the group is sitting. So I think we're away to Sligo next game, and I think if we have 5 defeat, we go through, and then Bows then it'll depend on their game, I suppose. But they, a good point for them as well.
Yeah, and one of the other standout results as well, your title rivals Athlone lost 1-0 home to Treaty United as well. So again, Athlone made plenty of changes there. And of course, once the international break and another round of games, or another round of games of this competition as well, you're going to be playing each other in a blockbuster game. But one thing I did want to ask you before I let you go is just in terms of the academy investment at Shelbourne. So this was announced earlier in the week, and the club has signed an 18-year lease with the AUL FAI Limited. So that's the Athletic Union League and the Football Association of Ireland. The project includes the development of 4 state-of-the-art pitches, including the construction of an all-weather one. A big part of this is also aided by a 500,000 grant from the Community Sports Facilities Fund, specifically allocated for the all-weather pitch. So that's good news on the face of it for the club. In terms of the women's side and in terms of the women's academy, how big a boost is this?
Yeah, it's huge. And look, obviously facilities is a big, problem in Ireland at the moment. And currently some of our teams, look, AUL is kind of the base of Shelbourne at the moment, but it doesn't facilitate all of our teams at the moment. And some teams, have to use other facilities. So the aim is to get rid of that. And we do hope to have every team train in the AUL. But look, it's obviously, huge for the club. And they're hoping to have it done this side of Christmas, which is really impressive. Now, whether that does happen or not, but that's the aim. It'll be 1 Astro and then 4 grass pitches that will just belong to Shelbourne. And I think, it's ideal to have every team in the same facility. And even for ourselves as a senior team, we were back and forth for a long time. Now we're fully based in the AUL at the moment, but a couple of years ago we were kind of, to and fro from different places, and you just don't feel like you're ever really settled. Whereas when you go up to up to the AUL now, and in the gym we have the Shelbourne crest, and in the dressing rooms we have Shelbourne. You just feel like this is us, this is our training facility. So I think they're really, pushing the investment of the academy. They're recently set up the Grinds program where kids can go after school on a Tuesday and they do their homework and then they train. So they're setting up facilities for that as well. That's something they also hope to grow. So look, it's brilliant for the club. It's, the way we need to be going forward with clubs in Dublin and around the country, where we are investing in our young players and giving them the best facilities possible. And look, it's not easy. It obviously took a lot of money, a big grant for this to happen. So it's not as straightforward and as easy as it is. But look, if it is done before Christmas, brilliant. And we're all based in one area, it's brilliant. And it just gets messy when teams are moving from place to place and you're just never really settled. So hopefully it all goes to plan, and AOL is just a base then for Shelbourne, and we don't need to hire any other facilities.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, great if that can happen across the board, across the country as well. But Rachel, thanks very much for your time. Obviously, when we speak next week, it'll be reacting to the Turkey game and then also looking ahead to the match against Slovenia.
Yeah, thanks, Raf.
All right, I'm delighted to be joined now by Richie Towell and Graham Gartland. And lads, welcome along. We'll obviously talk about League of Ireland in depth very shortly, but I think first things first, it's the Champions League final, which of course is on RTÉ2 and RTÉ Player on Saturday night. Coverage starting at 7 o'clock. And Richie, I suppose first off, just on Inter Milan, there's a bit of pressure maybe coming onto them in terms of this final, because every other trophy they'd have been going for this season has kind of slipped away. We saw Napoli on Friday night winning the league. We saw Inter Milan getting knocked out of the Italian Cup at the semi-final stage by AC Milan a few weeks ago, and now it's just the Champions League final. And of course, they lost the final to City a couple of years ago as well. And it's an aging team. There's a real sort of now or never feel about it this year.
Yeah, of course. Look, when you're playing for a club like Inter Milan, there's massive pressure on you to win trophies, and as you said, they've kind of missed out on the big ones domestically so far. They have. So, look, they're going to be all guns blazing for this one. They are. Obviously, Man City beat them in 2022, 2023. So, they have the experience of that, the heartache from that. So, probably a lot of the players that were there then are still there now. So, look, it'd be great for them to go on and win it. I think Filippo Inzaghi has done an incredible job there. And not even that, I think the route that they had to go to get to the final was a really, really tough route. I think if any team goes and scores 7 goals against Barcelona, semi-final over 2 legs. They probably deserve to go on and win it, but they're coming up against a PSG team who for me, I think they're the favourites for it. I think they're the best team I've probably watched this year. Even you see them against the likes of Liverpool when Liverpool were dominating in the Premier League, they just completely took over the game and they play it their way, which is great to see. And what probably impressed me most with PSG as well is they've gone away from going for the big boys, the likes of the Neymar and Mbappe and Messi's and players like this, and they've kind of stripped it back a little bit. So it'd be great to see them have a little bit of success as well, because, as I said, they've kind of gone away from, listen, I know they're obviously throwing big money at it, but they were throwing extortionate money at it for a couple of years, trying their best to win the Champions League. So I think this year is going to be the year. It'll be great.
Yeah, and tactically, Graham, this is going to be massively intriguing. You've got the fluid front three of PSG and then this Inter Milan backline. Okay, Barcelona put quite a few goals past them in the semi-final, but Barcelona can do that. But they have those wide centre-backs who like to overlap. They've got the wing-backs who push so far forward, and something's got to give.
Yeah, like the Barcelona game was a bit of a strange one, because like we thought they'd be defensively a lot stronger than they were, and obviously Barcelona showed them up a little bit in terms of conceding goals, but then they dug into something that they probably haven't been renowned for, which was, you know, them scoring themselves and being an attacking threat. They looked really, really powerful for set pieces. Now, will they have the same success against a powerful Paris Saint-Germain team? I'm not sure. Barcelona, probably one of the weakest part of the game is they lack a bit of power and physicality, especially in defending them situations. But they showed they can score goals into, which I think they're going to need to do. I agree with Richie. I think Paris Saint-Germain have been the best team in Europe this year in this competition, and by the performances, they've gone and knocked out some serious teams. Liverpool being the prime example. And like Richie said, they've gone for lads who are willing to work, and if they, even though wingers Dembele and Miskelesville, like they put in a shift as well. Like they're not just out there just to be creative. They are there to be creative, but they'll dig in and help back that team, and it makes for a better environment in the group. But you're right, like Inter roll into a back five and defend like that, and then they can shift and jump out. The wing backs can jump when they need to, and then the centre backs will overlap if they have good and clean possession of the ball. Will Paris Saint-Germain be as open as Barcelona? I don't think so. I think they've got more powerful and stronger players in each position. But do they pose the same attacking threat as Barcelona? I'm not sure as well. So I'm not sure how open the game will be, but I can imagine Paris Saint-Germain just coming out on top of it.
Yeah, in the engine room, Richie, obviously you're a specialist subject, central midfield, and you look at Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan on one side in terms of Inter Milan, and then you've got Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, João Neves. Probably the winning of the game comes in there. They're quite well matched, those two teams in those two areas of the pitch.
Yeah, well, it's like, do you go on one side and you have the experience of all the three Inter Milan midfielders? There's a hell of a lot of experience there. Or do you go with the youth and exuberance on the PSG side? For me, Vitinha has been absolutely incredible throughout the whole competition. Honestly, just the way he controls games. I think if you see a young midfielder going to Anfield and absolutely controlling the game, playing at his tempo, playing forward passes when he wants to drive him with the ball, for me, he's been a real one to watch throughout this whole campaign. And then the other two boys in beside him have been incredible as well. So, listen, most games probably do come down to the engine room and what happens in there, who comes out on top. But I think what Graham said, kind of what happens at either end, like who can keep clean sheets. Because as we said, like if you go and score 7 goals against Barcelona, like that's incredible. PSG are going to have to be really, really on that game because they know that Inter Milan have that attacking threat. But also conceding 6 goals is a big problem. It is. And if you have players on PSG's teams like Dembele and players like this, they're going to cause some real problems. So listen, it makes it a really, really intriguing game, and I'm so excited for it. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, and then the battle, I suppose, between the Inter forwards, Graham, and the PSG centre backs. So you've got Thuram and Lautaro Martinez, who are kind of a bit of a throwback of those kind of old school sort of front twos, and they dovetail so well. And then you've got Marquinhos, who I think Martin O'Neill is not a big fan of at all. I think he's been calling him overrated whenever he's been on punditry recently. But Marquinhos, and then William Pacho, the Ecuadorian centre back, has actually been really good and probably has flown under the radar prior to this season. That's going to be a great battle to watch as well.
That's where I think Inter were good against Barcelona. That Thuram just gave them an outlet when they were in trouble, and they were trying to obviously play out at times, but he had that ability to go into him and he'd hold her up. I know the Barcelona centre backs probably weren't as powerful, but I like McKenna. He's like, Paris Saint-Germain have made a lot of changes in the last 3 or 4 years that Richie touched on. You know, Mbappe leaves, Neymar leaves, Messi leaves. But he's one of the ones that's actually stayed around. And he's the captain of the team. He's mobile. He's good on the ball. You have to be clever against someone like Thuram, because when he does try and back into it, you can't give him that platform. And that's where I think McKenna has the mobility to get around him. That you can just, as soon as he steps back, you just step to the side and say, right, I'm not, because I'll have the pace to stay with you if it does get rolled into the channel. So I don't need to actually go and be as tight as other people do. And then it's just about how you handle them in the box, like, because again, that sometimes in the box, centre forwards who are just more powerful and you can just hold it and stand, and then they can get chances or get headers away or shots away. So yeah, look, he's been massive for them, Thuram, because he just gives them an outlet to get them up the pitch. And when they do defend deep at times and they need that outlet, or they're trying to play out and it becomes a little bit tight, because Paris Saint-Germain will press you, can they just flick that one round the corner? It's not a long ball, but it's just guided into his area. He holds the ball up and then they can get runners off that. So, like you said, look, Richie said it, the players on the show are brilliant, and they deserve to be at this level. But how do you handle both boxes is massive, like, in how the outside centre backs from Inter Milan or the wing backs handle Paris Saint Germain's wingers, and how the centre backs from Paris Saint Germain can handle Thuram. That's going to have a big bearing on the game.
Yeah, and Graham, if you were to call it, what way are you going?
I think Paris Saint Germain have been the best team in it. There's a bit of me that thinks, well, Inter might have their name on it a little bit because they've wrote the luck and got here. We've seen that. I think it's the anniversary when Liverpool won it, so there's an element of that about it. But I think over the course of the knockout phase, especially, obviously after coming out of the new group stage, Paris Saint-Germain have been the best team in it.
Yeah, and Richie, if you're looking in the crystal ball, it's such a tight and difficult one to predict. But what way are you leaning?
Yeah, I think PSG are going to do it, and I genuinely hope they do it as well. As I said, the owners there probably do get a little bit of stick for the amount of money that they throw at it, which is, over the last couple of years, it's been absolutely atrocious, the amount of money that they've thrown trying to win this competition, because they always win the French league every year. That's theirs, and this is the big one that they always go for. So to see them get a manager like Luis Enrique in and put their trust a little bit more in younger players, and have kind of gone away from that, thrown too much money at it, I'd love to see PSG win it this year.
Yeah, so that's RTÉ2, RTÉ Player, and also a live blog on rte.ie/sport on Saturday. The coverage on the TV starts at 7 o'clock, so huge. Could be a huge and very long night as well, because if it's tight, it could go all the way to extra time and penalties. So good luck to whoever's doing the live blog for that, because it's quite a lengthy one to do. But anyway, before we get to the League of Ireland, just want to mention we have an interview with Jim Crawford on our feed there on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. I was speaking to him last week after he named his Ireland Under-21 squad, which has a big League of Ireland influence, either of current players or players who were produced from within the league. So on the same feed as this podcast, you'll find it there. The other thing, the Ireland Under-17s World Cup group is now known for November in Qatar. Colin O'Brien's side will face Paraguay, Uzbekistan, and Panama in Group J. It's an expanded tournament as well, just to note. And recent squad include the likes of Victor Ojianvuna, who we've spoken about a lot on this podcast in recent months, and then Jaden Ume as well. And it was captained by Rory Finneran the last time in March, and he's come through at Newcastle. But Graham, I suppose, probably bring, the 17s will probably bring back memories for you, having been, capped at that level multiple times and being part of I suppose, that generation of Irish players that, the times of the Brian Kerr era where we were qualifying regularly for these sort of tournaments at that age grade. When you think back, what sort of memories does that bring back?
We qualified. I think I qualified and then got left out of the tournament, would you believe? And I always bring it up to Brian whenever I see him. We had qualified. We played Sweden, Switzerland, and Wales, and we didn't concede a goal. Went through. I think we got 7 points in top of the group. And then by the time the tournament came around, I was left out. So yeah, it's bittersweet memories. But look, a lot of things can happen from it. At the time, I think most of the lads that were in my under-16s team were all in the UK. They'd all moved over just after the junior cert. And I think myself and Stephen Kelly were the only two home-based players in the team. And we both went to Spurs. Stephen ended up signing. I didn't sign. I stayed and done my leaving cert, and then I went over. So a lot of stuff can happen around it. That when you do go and play in these, whereas was the qualifier, things happen off the back of it. Obviously, they did for Stephen as well. So, but then they went to the lads went to the European Championships. But like that, it's that feeling that you're building towards something, that you're on the up. I know a lot of the lads in this squad. I would have coached them at Shamrock Rovers. I would have coached against a lot of them from the other teams that are around. And it's a really talented group of players. Look, I think they'll do well because it's been expanded as well. So it's maybe not as strong early doors, and it'll get stronger as the tournament goes on. So I imagine that they'll get good results along the way, and they build the confidence, and then just can they build momentum from it. But one of the things that we tried to put into the young lads whenever they were going and play in the tournaments was, you're as good as that out there, but you just have to believe it. But the coaches have to believe it as well, and give them that belief. It's not necessarily, like, I see teams set up in international teams, we're going to play a low block against a certain team, and I go, just play your way, have your identity and play that way and see which way it goes. I understand you have to manage the game at certain times, and there's times you're going to have to drop off. I get that, but try and impose the way we're trying to play on them. Don't automatically give them the ball and say, oh, look, that technically they're better than us, so we're going to let them have it and become a counter-attack team. You might have to do that for 5-10 minutes, but you still have to have your own identity of how you want to play, have that belief in your group, have that belief in the young players, because if you give them a negative mindset now about playing against the bigger nations, they're going to have that when they get into senior level. They're going to look across and think, these are good. Take that away at youth level and say, look, go out and have a go and see. You lose the game 4-3, but you're able to match them. That's where you get your confidence from.
Yeah. Now we're going to turn our attentions to the League of Ireland itself in terms of the senior men's Premier Division, and we're going to start with Shamrock Rovers, who won 2-1 away at Derry City with a late Aaron McEneff winner. Now, Tiernan Lynch was unhappy with the defending on his side. He was speaking to Eric White after the game, and here is a part of that post-match interview.
Probably lost for words if I'm honest. I thought there was so many really good things we done out there tonight. We showed real commitment and a real desire and a hunger and all the things we've been asking of them. But I'm lost for words with the goals that we conceded. Absolutely and utterly horrific goals to concede. I don't think that they had too many shots the whole night. I thought we everything we asked of them we got. There was times we probably could have been better in possession and could have been a wee bit more comfortable in possession, which is something that we are working on and the boys are trying to improve on. There's no doubt about that. But you can't just live for those goals.
So that's Tiernan Lynch speaking to Eric White. And Graham, this game was a bit of a real arm wrestle, and particularly sort of opened up in terms of the life of it in the second half. But do you kind of see where Tiernan Lynch is coming from in terms of the defending from his side?
I thought the second goal, I think it's Kevin Holt is probably dragged out of position a little bit, and then they go down that side at Danny Grant that's down the right hand side. Kevin Holt's probably a little bit high, and then McAneff has a run on him, and I think if he can just recognise the run and get in a little bit earlier, he can stop it there when Danny Grant decides to cross. And that's the one that I think you'd be disappointed with, because they've kept their back five, back three. They've covered each other well. I done the Pats game up there, and I thought they slid and covered areas really, really well against really good wingers in Raheny and El Bizzetti and Keane Levy and the likes that were in that night. And I thought they covered the cross really well. And that was the one time that they just didn't get across, and then the recovery runs were a little bit out. I actually thought Brian Mark could have done better for the first goal. I know that it might seem a bit harsh. It's not. It's a speculative shot from Lopez, and I think he has to put. If you're unsure, you just push that over the bar. If you don't think you can catch it, I think safety wise, you can't parry that down or push it. I'm not sure if he tries to push it on the bar. I just think he could have dealt with it a bit better and relieved the danger and say, look, I'm unsure about this. I got caught off guard. I wasn't expecting Lopez to shoot. I'm just going to flicker over the bar and we can defend the corner. So I think from that point of view, we'd be really disappointed. If you see Lopez shooting from that distance, you're thinking, okay, we've limited his options in front of him. But I think he'd be disappointed that he just didn't see out the danger. He had a good goal from their point of view. Great ball from Paul McMullen, and Mullen's finish is really good. Rovers would be delighted with the second goal, because that's what they want. They want to just drag that centre back out and go in behind the wing back, and then they have runners in the box. And Rovers get a lot of their goals, and I've always said this in the last 4 years, they get a lot of the goals from midfield areas. So even though a striker might get 10 to 12 goals a year, the back strikers, whether it's Bork, Richie, McAniff, Jack Bourne, they'll arrive on and they'll play off cutbacks and stuff. So from a Rovers point of view, the second goal is everything that they would have worked on and loved. But I could get Tiernan Lynch's frustration with a 1-0 up. I think Brian Maher just needs to flicker over the bar.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, Shamrock Rovers have a great spread of scores, because they are top of the table when it comes to the number of different scores they have in the squad this season. But the other statistic, Richie, that stands out, and I know you've been part of some of those great Rovers teams that have won titles this season. They have 12 points collected from losing positions, more than any other club. So there's obviously a sense of, there's a resilience there whether they go down. And after the game, Stephen Bradley was talking about knowing that Derry would put his Rovers team under pressure in the first half, because of course Rovers had a game on a Monday, Derry did not. And then when it came to the second half, even with the Danny Mullen goal, he felt confident that Rovers had come back, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah,
look, it's inevitable. You're going up to the Brandywell, you're going to get under pressure. They always kind of start the games really well. They try and get the home crowd behind them early on, and that's what the fans do up there. They're very boisterous and they're loud, and they do get behind their team. But Rovers are in great form at the moment. Yeah, what probably disappointed Tiernan Lynch most was, I think, the first goal that they conceded. Obviously, they're probably not expecting Roberto Lopez to shoot from there. It's probably the first time I couldn't believe it was him that was shooting from there when I seen it back. I couldn't believe it. So that's probably why Brian Maher probably got caught off guard a little bit. But the reaction of the defenders, they all just stood watching it. They did. You see the difference. Michael Noonan, he wants to score goals. Proper player. He'll chase everything down. Even if the keeper does touch that over, he's there anyway. He is. And that's what he's taking the gamble. That's what the defenders need to do. I'm sure Graham will tell you himself, being a defender, if there's a shot and you need to be chasing back, where all the Derry City defenders are ball watching, and the ball just drops. Michael Noonan has a simple finish into the back of the net. I actually think the second goal has worked really well. It's a lovely through ball to Danny Grant, and it's a lovely cutback. That's exactly what Rovers want. Me, obviously, having played there for the last 4 years, you want to drag people out into them pockets and then slip the wing backs in behind and have runners. And just going back to what I was saying, where you have so many different scorers, it's because the likes of a Padraig Hammond or someone like that, who is an absolute goal scorer, he's done his whole career, he wouldn't fit in at Shamrock Rovers because he doesn't run the channels, he doesn't drag centre halves into them pockets that they don't want to go. He's a real box centre forward, and that's not what Shamrock Rovers do. They have people in all areas of the pitch dragging defenders out of the pockets, and then they have the runners in behind and looking for them cutbacks, because these days the big trend is cutbacks. It is, and most goals that are scored is from cutbacks position. So listen, Shamrock Rovers had that game plan and it worked perfectly. It did, and that's 5 wins from 5 now. They're kind of in cruise control at the moment. Like,
Yeah, and Graham, that's probably the only side this season, only time this season that somebody's put in a run like that, and it's starting to look ominous for the rest of the league. The only thing, I suppose, this league does make fools of us the whole time, so it'd be very hard to make a prediction at this stage to say they're going to definitely go on to win it. But it does look ominous for the rest of the league at this stage.
Yeah, and again, Shells went on a run to start the last season, and ultimately it put them top, and nobody could knock them off. And then Rovers nearly went on a run at the latter stages of last season and put them under pressure, but Shells just had enough. And one run can do that. That's like Shells done at the start of last year. I think they went 7 games, won 7, and then they ended up drawing 2 at the back of it, and I put them on top, and then they were able to go and see it out. But yeah, and when you see the lads that they have coming back and the squad that they have, and they're not getting as many injuries, they're maybe smaller injuries than they had previously. It does look like it, not just because they're in form, but it's because the lack of form in other teams that you're thinking, right, Pat Straw again on Friday night at home. So, and Shells beat Sligo, tough Sligo team, and Shells come through, but they drew against Drogheda at home. So that's 2 home games where they probably weren't that convincing against Sligo. But I know I was at the Drogheda game as well, and they weren't that convincing neither. So I'd understand if teams are playing well and not getting results that you think, right, it's going to fall for them eventually. Nobody's really in great form other than Shamrock Rovers. I actually thought Derry, I watched Derry live up in the Brandywell, and I thought they were excellent against Pats that night. They came out real hungry about them in the second half. The runners, the energy in midfield that O'Reilly gives them, I thought, yeah, these are really good sides. Defensively, they look solid. I still worry about the recovery pace at times, but then they go and lose at home to Shamrock Rovers, where I think if you're really going to push somebody, you have to put in performances at home, especially against somebody that you can see that could as title rivals. So it's not just that Rovers are in great form; it's that I don't think the other teams are really hitting the heights that obviously Shelbourne hit last year. Pats hit at the tail end of last year when they went on their run and went from second to bottom all the way up to the top. But you have to be careful sometimes about criticising. A lot of people are very sensitive about criticising teams at the moment, but other than Rovers, I don't see many teams in great form right now. So that's why it looks like. But the league can make a fool of you, and Rovers have sometimes probably from not taking each game on its merits and performed in every game that they should have in the last couple of years. But this year it looks like they are, and they look really hungry to go and get that title back.
Yeah, and one would think then like the break is coming at the wrong time for them. Obviously, it's coming after this round of games, coming this Friday, the mid-season break, which coincides with the international break as well, Richie. But Stephen Bradley was saying, like, from his point of view, actually, no, they really want a break because it was a fairly hectic start to the season, and then obviously he feels his side traditionally have been stronger in the second part of the campaign. Now, from your point of view and from very recent memories, how do you generally use the mid-season break, and how do players, or what do they do during that kind of couple of weeks, and which is essentially only maybe a few days actually of being off?
Yeah, you kind of just want to go and recharge the batteries a little bit, and obviously I think when you're in the form that Shamrock Rovers are in, you kind of don't want the break because you want to keep momentum going. Momentum is such a big thing in football, and that's something Rovers have in abundance at the moment. So for them, I know Stephen said that they do want the break, and it's probably understandably so because they obviously had the European campaign that ran on quite long last year. It kind of hampered their pre-season a little bit. It definitely hasn't hampered the way they've started the season so far. So I think it could be good for them as well. I think that's what probably Stephen's probably thinking of, is to get a little break, let the lads go on holiday, recharge the batteries a little bit. Gone are the days where lads are probably going away all together and getting drunk every night and going out on the town and stuff like that. So I think lads are a little bit smarter now. They realise that if they're going to go away, they need to recharge the batteries, put the feet up, get a bit of sun, because especially when they come back, they're going to be going into a busy period, and then it's going to be running straight into the European games. And I think this year it's going to be really hard for Rovers in Europe, because obviously they're not league champions, so it's going to be a much harder route for them. So I'm sure Stephen will be on the lads when they are going away, that they're rested, recuperated and ready to roll when they come back in.
Right, very good. And St. Pat's and Waterford drew 2-2, as mentioned earlier. Mason Melia scoring a couple of goals. But Graham, obviously the Pats defending in the box was a bit of an issue throughout the game, and it was very interesting. Both goals came from shots blocked and then sort of follow-ups as well. And that's an area that Stephen Kenny will probably have huge concern about.
Yeah, I seen it early they struggled with it down in Galway when they played down there, and Galway ended up winning the game 2-1, I think. And I thought it was just, it happened against Galway, and Galway seemed to be particularly strong at that, but it happened again the other night. And I think their overall performance was more worrying than just that. It's a home game, and I know Stephen he's pre-match stuff where he's having a go at, I think it's Ian Morris for criticising them about that they haven't got a style. They do have a style of play, and that's his way. Like he's open, expansive football, but they do struggle physically, and they do struggle with power, and they do struggle with having that drive through midfield. And Forrester can give you that sort of calmness when things do get a bit hectic, but he just needs more in front of him. And you've seen that they look strong on the counter attack because Mason Melia can get you up the pitch, but getting to the ball and seeing where the second one is going to drop is a massive part of the game as well. That you're able to read and understand the game. That if a defender has a free header, right, he's going to get distance on it and going to get up on the game. If he's under pressure where he's jumping or he's jumping backwards, he knows, well, he's not going to get much purchase on this. I need to get underneath it so that it's going to drop. I can be there and help. So just having that game awareness in there. And Jamie Lennon is excellent at it majority of the time, but he just needs help around him either side. And if he's doing it as a single midfielder, the second midfielder just needs to come around and give him that bit of extra protection, and be a little bit more resilient during them periods of the game. But I think Pat's, and from Stephen Kenny's point of view, I think he'd be a bit disappointed in the start of the season, considering how well they finished last year, and everybody's saying that they should be title contenders, and he's sort of playing it down, saying, well, actually, they were second for bottom when I took them over, but they finished third. You know, sometimes it's how you finish, and he's hoping that maybe the European run will galvanise them like it did last year. But I do think they need a bit of help. I do think they need more running power. I think Raheny needs to find a bit of form. He's produced 2 assists this season. He probably could do a bit more. Elbazetti, even though he's a bit more of a goal threat, needs to provide a little bit more from wide areas and really work the channels with that and build up that relationship with the fullbacks, that they're going outside, they're going inside. And like I said, I watched them a couple of times live this year, and in both games they didn't score, and they didn't look like scoring. One of them was the Shells game at home, finished 0-0. The other one was away to Derry. And it's just that appetite, that hunger to score goals, but also that creativeness that you'd imagine that they should have in abundance, but they just need more in front of them. Keane is obviously losing him in the form he was on at the time, took away a bit of a goal threat, and they just need to get him back up and firing. And obviously Mason's come back, but Mason's goals are opportunistic. You wouldn't say that it's through a partner play. It's a miss his shot and he comes in and collects it and scores. Second one, he just breaks from the halfway line, and you saw why the hype about Mason Melia is there, because of that pace and power, and obviously his ability to finish as well. So yeah, look, you'd like to see them do better than they're doing. Like, you'd like to see a proper title challenge from the likes of Pats, Shelbourne obviously defending that title, and Derry getting up there. So it'd be nice to see them kick on and challenge. And I think Stephen maybe try and bring in some new recruits in the summer too.
Yeah, and Watford obviously brilliant at the start of the game, in that game particularly, but also then to stay in it and then to go and get the equaliser as well. So very well done from them. But just mentioned Mason Melia there, Richie, and I think he had passed his driving test earlier. So I'm not sure which is the biggest achievement, the brace or the driving test, because they're both tricky enough to do. As Graham said, opportunistic finishes, but both kind of quite similar in that he showed a lot of composure once he got into the area and finished it off. But it just kind of shows as well that his development is continuing apace, especially playing men's football week on week and being trusted to start for a team like Pats.
Yeah, look, obviously Pats are in a good place at the moment, but to have someone like Mason Melia in their ranks, that's a big boost for them, is because I think, as Garth said, they didn't create an awful lot in the game against Waterford. They didn't. And the 2 goals that they do get, Mason Melia has kind of done it all himself. One is a miscued shot that he takes a great touch and finish. And then the second one is just all him. Is he harries them down, makes the defender take a bad touch, and then his running power, pace, the whole lot through. And then to have the composure as well is really impressive. I watched them up in Tallaght against Rovers, and I was really disappointed, especially with him. I know that's probably a bit harsh because he's only a young boy, and you're going to have that inconsistency when you're a young boy. But to see him back a poor performance up with a performance like that was really impressive. It was. It shows the type of character he has, and the will that he has to go and score goals. He was really, really impressive on the night, even though Pats were really poor. Waterford deserved a minimum of a draw. I actually was listening to Conan Noonan's interview after the game, and they were actually disappointed that they didn't get all 3 points, which is understandable. So they had more possession of the ball, they had more shots on target. So they most definitely deserved at least a minimum of a draw. And for me, when you look at Pats, Raf, they're lovely footballers there. They have some really, really talented players in their team, but I don't see that. Like what Graham said, I don't see that will that they have. Like you're talking about, just for second balls, just to go and have a will and a desire to go and get the second balls, to press from the front, to put their bodies on the line, to defend goals. I just haven't seen that from them this season. And for them to be talking about to be title challengers, that is something that they're most definitely going to need to have, because gone are the days where you can just rely on talent, because there's so much talent in the league now. You have to have that desire, and you have to have that want to go and win games. If it is pretty or if it is dirty, it doesn't matter. You have to go and get the result, and Pats just haven't been doing that lately.
Yeah, and then just on Melia and sort of watching him playing men's football, Graham, he's obviously in the Ireland under-21 squad, and I was talking to Jim Crawford about him in a bit of detail, and also about the wider issue of you've different pathways, and he has the likes of Cathal O'Sullivan as well, he's been called into the 21s, playing men's football for quite a while now, but then likely he might be going to Crystal Palace or somewhere else, where he might be then moved into reserves and sort of underage football. For Melia, what do you make of what his development pathway looks like once he does go to Spurs in January? Because he will more than likely, at least in the short term, go from playing men's football every week, where he seems to be growing week on week, and then going maybe into a reserve and underage system where top class facilities, top class coaches, but perhaps without the direct experience of playing games where they actually matter week on week.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because he'll go probably 23s, and then they look at maybe a loan and trying to up the level he's playing at and seeing how he adapts to it. But I've seen Mason since he's 14. He came out with Joey's and then went to St. Pat's. I think he might have had a year with Bray, Joey's under 14s, in the National League, where they would have played against him as a striker. And he has that ability that when the ball's in front of him, there's grass in front of him, and he has the power to run past a lot of people. And he was doing that at that age, at 14. I think where he's got better is with his back to goal. And I think but I also think there's massive improvements when I'm watching him, and I'm watching him from a centre back, thinking, where does he need to improve? And it's his movement to free up that grass to run into. So he's like, I'm pulling people away, I'm checking, and then I'm going to go. And what'll happen is then you'll see his pace and his power, then that you go, oh, it looks like he's a yard ahead of everybody else. And Richie touched on this, maybe up in Tallaght, a good centre back will know, I know you want to run into that grass, and I'm already going to start edging towards it. You haven't done anything to shift me, to move me out of it before you went. And then it's that being willing to do that as many times as it takes for you to get in and goal. And I've played against one of the best strikers I've ever played against wouldn't get the third if they'd made a run and it didn't come in. They'd give out about it. They'd have a go at the midfielder, and they'd say, put it in, and they'd have it moan, and they'd whinge, and then the next time they got it, they'd do it again. And again, if they didn't get it, no problem telling people, put the ball in. but they constantly worked you. And then if they couldn't get in behind you, they ran you deep and then came short. So they ran you long and then came into feet. And I think all them things he'll add to his game as he goes. He's not going to be the finished article. He's been playing senior football since he's 16. So I think where his development might go is he might go into a 23s environment, and it's not as hostile and it's not as win at all costs as it is obviously at the moment when he's playing at Pats. But it might just allow him to work and develop his movement and really hone in on the cleverness of it and the consistency of it. Right, I need to be here at certain times. I need to make this run and I need to make a run all the time. And no matter how many times you don't get the ball, you still need to do it. Getting across the front post is a big one for me. How many times is he going to do that? So I think maybe coming out of that environment where it's win at all costs and it's just he has to perform every week to, well, I'm going to go into a learning environment that might can develop these other things. Might help him a little bit, but he will stand out the fact that he has been in a competitive environment and he goes over there in the 23s, because Richie will tell you this, when I first went over to the UK playing the academy football, I thought it was really soft. I thought it was really pedestrian at times, and why is there no aggression? Why doesn't everybody want to win this? So even the last 10 minutes of games where the games get hectic, I'm like, we need to move the ball and get it forward a bit quicker, we're losing. But the lads said, oh no, keep playing this way. And I'm like, there was an element of, no, we need a result. And because we had come out with the DDSL, which everyone in the UK at the time thought was the maddest league in the world, because we were be killings in the lawns or killings over in Sallynoggin or up in Stellamaris or something like. So everything was win because the leagues were so competitive. And then when you went to the UK, it was real like, the game finished 1-1 and everybody's, we played well. And I'm thinking, we're not trying to win the game. So look, I'm not saying one way is right over the other, but I think Mason's gone from this ultra competitive environment to going into 23s where he will be about his development, but he has to keep that edge that he has, and that's what got him over there in the first place.
Yeah, now, while Melia got a brace, John Martin got a hat-trick for Shelbourne as they beat Sligo Rovers 3-2. And Richie, looking at the goals, especially the first two that he scored, very much carbon copies. Kerr McEnroy out to Evan Caffrey. Evan Caffrey with an in-swinging ball right into the 6-yard box, and then a poacher's finish from John Martin. And this is a time where we're talking about Shells having issues in terms of strikers, especially in Sean Boyd's absence, being productive. But it's certainly not a coincidence that the two goals were almost carbon copies in a certain sense.
Oh, they're identical. They are. I think John Russell will be pulling his hair out. He will. You can see it one goal from that. You think the next time the ball goes out wide, if you're a centre half, you're up against a player like John Martin who wants to get on the end of things. Guys will tell you, you want to lock onto him, be tight, get a hold of him. He has another free run at it again for a second goal, which is incredible. It is. Well, I think that's a real trend from Shelbourne as well. They do like getting the ball out wide. It's I know it was Caffrey on this occasion, but the likes of Cameron Ledwich and Norris on Weescon Boy, they've provided that outlet out there where they're getting forward and they're delivering balls into the box, and they're really dangerous from that area. But I think Sligo will be really disappointed with the manner that they conceded the goals, because they're absolutely identical there. But for John Martin, it's great to score a hat-trick in a league game, and it wasn't a hat-trick that you go and win 5 or 6-0 and it's, I got a hat-trick. It was needed. It was very much it was all
decisive. Yeah,
it was very decisive. It was. So it was brilliant for him, and it was a perfect hat-trick as well. Left foot, right foot, and a header. So not many people can say they've done that. So for him to do that is incredible. It is.
Yeah, and Graham, from the Sligo point of view, both on the defending side of those moments, what can they take from it? Because obviously there's positives at the other end to an extent, and there has been filtered through the season as well, especially the Owen Elding goal, which was goal of the weekend. Yeah, but what can they take from it on both sides?
They pose a goal threat, Sligo. They have done all year, but defensively they look really vulnerable. Like Richie said, that goes down to, and I know John Russell does a lot of coaching with them, but it's defensive specific coaching of where you need to be at certain times, especially for in-swingers. So as soon as that ball travels backwards and he opens up on his right foot, you gotta get out of the box, like. So you gotta get distance between your the the goalkeeper so he can see a ball as an in-swinger, because if it misses everybody, he's going to have more time to catch it. Where how many times you've seen in-swingers go in because everybody misses it, and the keeper's like, he's got the back lines too close to them. So you got to squeeze, and you use your marks on the pitch. So 6-yard line, get to your penalty spot. If it goes back 40, you get to your 18, you get to your D, and you clear it out. And if you don't clear it out, as Richie said, you latch on, and you stop your man getting a touch on the ball, or you just get down the line of the ball. But I've seen them a few times, and at vital times they forget to do that. They forget to clear the box, or they forget to go with runners at certain times. And that just comes down to repetition, and you got to keep doing it, and you got to do it as a team, because if you all step out and one stays in, they're onside as well. So, like, as somebody who, I'm going back to the teams that I played in, like, you are drilled every week. You done every second day. You done one of these with your team, because our teams that we played on had to be built on defensive shape, and you had to build that continuity in your back line. So it's that thing about getting together and squeezing out together and clearing out your box and keeping the strikers as far away from the goal as you can. And even on crosses where it's cut back, you just squeeze. The striker has to be honest then and get back in line with you in time. He's run a bit better. So you need to work. Strikers are always told you need to work the centre-backs, but there's also a saying that the centre-backs need to work the striker and keep him honest and get him out of the box and make him time he's run a bit better and squeeze the line, and everybody could do it. Sligo just don't have that at the moment in their back line, and it needs to come, because they are conceding an awful lot of goals.
Yeah, for sure. And then Galway United beat Cork City 2-1, with Conor McCormick scoring the winner later on. But Graham, just looking at Cork themselves, obviously this was the first game Gerard Nash is in charge from. Of course, he won't be able to put an imprint on the side in terms of bringing players in until the window opens, of course. But when you look at them, what positives can he take? And also, what did you make of his appointment in the context of it being a young squad and the background that he's had as well?
Yeah, I met him at Ipswich a long time ago, and obviously he's gone off and coached, and he was unlucky that his career finished due to injuries, I think. But he's gone out and coached. He's come through at youth level, and he has to deal with young players, and he'll have their ear, and understanding sometimes that you have to speak to young players a little bit different. The only game I've really seen them being blown out in was the Rovers game, where they lost. I think it might have been 3 or 4-0 up in Tallaght. Every other game, they've been in the game. They've conceded a couple of late goals in the last couple of games, away to Pats and obviously now away to Galway. So it's something that, and I know it's easy to point out and go, oh, well, are they fit enough and not seeing out the games? But I think it's I also put that down to concentration and a mentality thing as well. If you're constantly worried about something happening, generally it happens. And it's just changing that mindset, going, actually, at 1-1, we're going to try and push up and try and win the game. And if you draw it, that's what happens as a consequence. But if you're holding on to something and you're constantly bringing on pressure, more likely you might break, especially with a younger team. So, look, from Cork's point of view, I'm not sure if they were in talks from before they appointed Tim Clancy. And now they've gone back in and got him. So, look, he's going to have to come in and learn as he goes, really. I'm not sure how much he knows about the Irish football or the Irish League. He's going to have... I think the break will be good for him to get an idea of that and get an idea of his team and see what he can bring in. But they've got really good young players as well, and they just need that little bit of belief at times and to understand that you're capable of playing at this level, just getting that bit of experience to see out games as well. And that's very hard to do, because young players and experience, you only get it by playing. But it's known, right, we're in this situation again, and a little bit of situational training sometimes where you're going, look, you are 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go, and this is how we're going to see it out, and give the training games a little bit of settings and context to them as well can help. So, but I'm sure he's thinking of all that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on.
Yeah, and then for Galway, obviously the victory, Richie, it nips in the bud what had been a little bit of a poor run, which was 4 defeats in a row, and now suddenly and it was already very faint at that stage, any faint chance that they get dragged in beside the bottom two has sort of dissipated somewhat, and they're even above Waterford in the table now. Last week, obviously, we were talking about Galway trying to play through Moses Dyer a little bit more. and whether and what are the benefits of that through sort of open play. But of course, just after half time against Cork, it paid off really well in terms of how that goal, their first goal, and the goal that broke the deadlock, happened.
Yeah, look, that's Galway's first win in 5 games, so it was really important. And what I loved most was, did you see John Caulfield's reaction when they did score? Because it was quite late on that Conor McCormack scored the goal, and you can see how much it meant to John Caulfield. He sprinted down the line and was celebrating with McCormack, which is great to see, because John's a very, very passionate manager. He is. I know he's had a really tough year so far. So to see someone like him get a good result is great to see. And look, I know we talk about Galway maybe getting sucked in, but I think they have way too much in the tank for them to get sucked into a relegation battle. It's really, really uncharacteristic of the run that they've been on, that they're conceding goals and they haven't been scoring as many as they were, because John's team are always known as being solid at the back, and then they always create chances going forward with getting crosses into the box, long throw-ins, any opportunity they get it into the box. So I think they'll be absolutely fine this season. I wouldn't be worried about them at all. Be on the flip side, they're the type of team that could go on a run with the style of football that they have. They could go on a little run, and as you said, when you have players like Moses Dyer in the team, he's been in incredible form this year. If they can get him a little bit more involved in the game, himself and Hickey, they have a great partnership up there. They do. You have Hickey, it's a bit unorthodox. He's probably playing in the 10, and he's a big target man. He is, which is a bit strange. You probably look at any number 10s who play in this league, the likes of Jack Bourne, Graham Burke. They're all small, technical players that want the ball into their feet. He's a little bit the opposite. He's a big target man that actually plays in the 10, and then as soon as the ball goes out wide, he's in the box and he's wanting to get on the end of things. I think him and Dyer have a great relationship. Dyer kind of runs them in behind, and causes that little bit of chaos that's needed. And then obviously you have Hickey, who's the target man. So I think with even just having them two in the team, I think that's enough for Galway, most definitely not to be getting dragged into a relegation battle.
Yeah, because I think in terms of trying to be productive, those two are going to be key, because Galway are bottom of the table. There was a stat earlier that I mentioned about Shamrock Rovers having the most spread of scores. Galway are actually at the bottom of it, with 6 different scorers in their team. So the ones that are scoring, the more productive they are, obviously the better for them. But then Drogheda beating Bows 1-0. Douglas James Taylor's penalty. Obviously, we were talking about Douglas James Taylor last week, but the penalty itself, Richie, in terms of harsh or clumsy, in terms of Sean Green fouling Conor Keeley?
I don't think it's a penalty. Gareth will probably back me up on this, I'd say so, because he's look at he's laughing there, he knows it.
I was at it, and it was like.
Do you think it was a penalty?
Oh, when you were at it,
yeah.
Honestly, no, when I watched the replay back, I was like, all right, but when I was at it, because he headed one away 2 minutes before it, and then he just grabbed him, and you're like, and then the ball, because the cross comes in flat,
yeah,
he's a hold of him and thinks, well, I'm going to get to the ball as well, and I'm like, you can't do both. You got to let go of him. Like, it's different if it's above his head, but he just literally just grabbed him and pushed him out. Like, it was like he thought, if I'm not heading it, you're not heading it, and just went for him. And I'm like, there was actually there was no need for it. I was looking straight at it, and I was like, because he headed one away, and the next one he just grabbed him again, got a hold of him, and I think I said to the fella beside me, he's gonna give away a penalty here, like. And
he was up against Keeley, who's a lot bigger than him, and
he was that far out from the goal. Yeah, I get it. I get the whole thing of I grab him, and then if the ball comes in, you don't let him jump, or it goes over you, and you can go, well, I had him. But because it was flat and the two of them went for it, he ended up just coming, and I was going, oh yeah, I could see why he was given. Like, you know, like, I know the replay, you go, looks, but when you were looking straight at it, I thought, oh yeah, I was like, that's a pen, like, and then and if I'd done it myself, I would have went, oh yeah, why didn't I let go of him? And Keeley knew. Now look, as soon as Keeley knew the ball wasn't coming to him and he felt all that, he went over as well. But he's entitled to do it. But when you were live at the game, it was like, and that's me thinking centre half union here. I thought, no, it's just them being aggressive, but there was just no need for him to do it at all. Bows lucky, like Bows. Dennis made an unbelievable save in the first half. It was rugby. Rooney heads it back across goal, and the bounce. And as it's bouncing, he gets a flick on it, and it hits the inside the post. Whelan, we could had a great angle of that. He cut across a shot, and it was bending. It was always bending, sort of away from goal, and it hit the top corner, and it just bounced back down. And then the chances he had at the end, they'd be so disappointed in not scoring a goal up in United Park. Bows were really good. Bows were excellent in the first half and dominated the game. But Drogheda do what Drogheda do. They just hung in, and then they got a couple of chances on the break. There was a bit of pressure building. Like I said, a couple of crosses into the box. Keeley had set up from set pieces, and then they get the penalty. And in fairness to Douglas James Taylor, he sticks it into the top corner. He looked better. As soon as he scored the goal, you could see the confidence grow in him, because I thought he was only okay against Shelbourne. Probably 2 out of 4 would have bounced off him and got away from him. I thought his hold up play was a bit better. And once he scored, you could see his confidence grown, and that thing that strikers have where his layoffs become a little bit better and a little bit extra, like, sort of finesse on them a little bit. You know what strikers are like when they score, they get all cocky. But he was good. He was good on the night. And in fairness to Drogheda, they seen out the game well then. Dennison made 2 great saves near the end to keep them in it. But there was a bit of a tension after the game as well. So yeah, there was a lot happening on the night.
Yeah, and I suppose Bows as well, the other bit of news for them, they will stay at Dalymount for at least part of 2026, and then they'll be looking at grounds, including the RDS, for temporary stays once redevelopment at Dalymount starts in earnest. But that's obviously a problem for another time that the club will have to deal with further down the line. But anyway, table, Shamrock Rovers, 6 points clear at the top, ahead of Drogheda, have now gone second. And then Derry City, who have a game in hand on both of them, and Bows also with a game in hand, just a couple of points below Drogheda. Now, games this weekend, so the final round of games before the break: Sligo against Pats, Waterford against Drogheda, Cork City against Shells, Bows against Derry, and then Shamrock Rovers against Galway United. That's all on Friday. And then we won't have time to really talk about the first division in any detail, but just a note in terms of Athlone Town, who are bottom of the first division, and the full story is on RTÉ.ie by Johnny Ward as well, for anyone who wants to have a look at it. Athlone last week released 5 first-team players. That's Adam Wickstead, Declan McDade, Kyle O'Connor, J.R. Wilson, and Bastian Herry. And then also Danny Byrne, one of the interim coaches, has also had to step aside. They're yet to appoint a manager and a senior coaching team since Dario Costello's exit. And takeover talk has been bubbling for some time, but nothing is happening on that front, at least from what is the available information. And they are seeking new investors, and that's been going on for some time as well. And then just in terms of Michael O'Connor, and this was a statement that Athlone put out on their social media. The board of Athlone Town AFC confirmed that Michael O'Connor has resigned from his role with the club with immediate effect. The board wished to thank Michael and his family for his time with the club, and we wish him the very best in the future. So he's obviously served in various roles, from manager to director of football at his hometown club. And I suppose finally, just to finish off, Richie, Dundalk, just your latest dispatch on what's happened there in terms of the goals that they scored. Like obviously Daryl Horgan's was quality, but then the Leo Gacha one looks like a cross, to be honest. But
no chance he meant that.
No.
Horgan's goal is brilliant, it is, but that's vintage Horgs, isn't it? Even as he's got older, he still has that real jinkiness where he can drop the shoulder, create a half yard of space, and then the finish is brilliant. It is. Look, Daryl to be playing at Dundalk in the first division is a great thing for Dundalk. It is, but you can see in his performances that he's still playing at a really high level. And the first goal, that's an absolute fluke. It is. There's no chance in the world he meant that.
No, it didn't look like it looked great once it goes in, but certainly going for a cross, I think there. Yeah. But anyway, that's it for this week's podcast. We'll be back next week when Alan Cawley will join us to give us first-hand sense of the atmosphere in Munich during Saturday's Champions League final, which, to mention again, is live on RTÉ2 and RTÉ Player, as well as a live blog on RTÉ.ie/sport. We'll also review Ireland v Turkey with Rachel Graham, and we'll be chatting League of Ireland too. But Richie and Graham, thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks, pal.